If you're afraid of success, this message isn't for you. Every year, higher ed talks about change. But Insights EDU 2026, it's the catalyst. The Modern Learner Report drops here first, revealing how learners are thinking, searching, and deciding right now. Spoiler, most institutions aren't keeping up. 3 days on the beach in Fort Lauderdale, February 17th to the 19th, 2026. Over 65 powerhouse speakers, real strategy, real data, only built for leaders ready to own their transformation. Reserve your spot now at insightsedu.com. Early bird pricing ends December 15th. The EdUp Experience has brought you powerful conversations with more than 400 college presidents and higher ed leaders, over 1,000 episodes and counting. Now, we're inviting you to join us in shaping the future of higher ed podcasting. For just $5.99 a month, you lock in that rate for life. But only if you sign up before December 31st, 2025. As a supporter, you'll get ad-free early access to episodes. Prices go up after December 31st, but your rate never will. Visit edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com. Click support the show and join our community today. Welcome back, everybody. It's your time to EdUp on the EdUp Experience podcast, where we make education your business. This is Elvin Freitas, co-founder of the EdUp Experience, and today I have with me one-on-one conversation with Brent Richard. He is the CEO at IMG Academy. Brent, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I like to get right into it. No fluff, just the good stuff. So tell me all about IMG Academy. What do you do? How do you do it?
IMG Academy. Yeah, so we like to say we're the world's leading sports education brand, and we have what I call a heartbeat boarding school, K-12 education for the most part, although we also intersect and work with universities as well and higher education. The history of IMG Academy started as a tennis academy almost 50 years ago, the Bollettieri Tennis Academy, many people know it for. And through the decades, it is now a multi-sport academy in Florida with 600-acre campus just outside of Tampa in Bradenton, Florida, offering 11 sports now and a fully integrated, holistic education where students do classroom education 4 hours a day. They do sports 4 hours a day. And we have what we call a dedicated resourcing model. So teachers only teach, coaches only coach. And then we have a whole group of people, almost 100 people on this campus that just work on mind and body and life skills through the lens of sport. So that's the boarding school. There's 1,600 boarding school student athletes here today. And the vision for IMG Academy is to make our wonderful life-changing education experiences available to any student athlete anywhere in the world that thinks sports is a platform for life. And so now outside of that boarding school, we have almost 300,000 customers. That's a mix of campus-based products that are a little lighter touch and shorter, usually sports camps, although we have some other experiences as well. And then online products. We have online coaching and we have online college recruiting, college matriculation in the education world. So that's the suite of products. We're constantly innovating and launching new products. We've actually just launched one recently that is going to both K-12 schools and university partners. That is, think of the IMG Academy Inside, which is a combination of digital products and coaching, really around sports education with partners all around the world.
It's fantastic, Brent. Thanks for laying that out there. So I kind of want to take a step back. 50 years ago, do you know the story of how it all got started? The founder and the mission and the purpose, and what was that like?
It was a tennis academy for elite tennis players. And so there's a long history of players that were here, sort of famously Andre Agassi, Maria Sharapova. There's a long list. If any of your listeners are tennis players, they almost certainly know the Bollettieri Academy and some of the story. And but back then it was really elite tennis, and the school was sort of next door, not related. And over the years, Nick Bollettieri built that business, and there was a realization that not only should it be for just the most elite tennis players and athletes, but actually it was an amazing experience for any student athlete, tennis player at the time that really wanted to just get better and be their best. And over those 50 years, this little thing called college sports became bigger, and sports became not only a great way to develop wonderful athletic, health, and life skills, it also became a pathway to college. And so as the world evolved and tennis evolved, we started adding more sports outside of tennis. And then over time, it really went from being a sport academy with school on the side to a fully integrated operating education model where the school, the sport, the dorms, and everything in between was all under one roof.
Okay, great. That's great to hear. So I always like to ask, tell us about your path to the CEO of IMG. What was your story?
My story, probably the most important part of that story is I was a student athlete. And growing up, I played all different sports. I ended up, soccer was the path that got me to the best outcome I could get in college, which was Vanderbilt University. So I had the opportunity to benefit to play Division I sports in college, soccer. And, that probably was a thing that, gave me a leg up at getting into the workforce. And it certainly, once I was in the workforce, I started my career at Goldman Sachs and did a lot of work in investment banking, but it was always about sports and entertainment sector-wise. So I got to know the business of sports really early. And I think being a student athlete and everything that brought with it, the skills you learn outside of the classroom, really set me up for success in what was a really hard and really competitive, life as an adult in the workforce. And so that led me to co-founding a merchant bank, which just meant that I left with some my partners and colleagues at Goldman and other places, and we started a sports and entertainment-focused merchant bank, which then led me into the investing path as opposed to just advising companies. And that eventually brought me to helping a guy named Ari Emanuel he had a Hollywood talent agency, and he wanted to buy IMG, which was bigger than just IMG Academy. A lot of the world knows IMG as the sports media powerhouse that puts on Wimbledon and the US Open and many, many other things. And so that was the next stop. And that was a really fun ride. And one thing led to another. I had spent a lot of time around youth sports. I thought it was a wonderful, wonderful space where you had lots of parents and lots of kids. I think these were life-changing experiences. And I thought IMG Academy was at the pinnacle of youth sports, and Endeavor just happened to own it. It was a small little thing in the context of Endeavor. And I was really hopeful at the time that we could take that brand and that product and make that boarding school the best it could ever be, but then also acknowledge the fact that the brand was global. Everyone in the world, you walk around, get stopped in every airport in the world if I wear my IMG shirt like I'm wearing now. And it was a shame that the only thing we could give to the world was this physical boarding school product. And so we've just been working really hard to make our brand and intellectual property more accessible through new products beyond the boarding school. So that was the vision when I came down, and that's what I don't know if we're in the second or the third inning, but it's still early, and we're working on it and seeing some success along the way.
Yeah, and you've been there 5 years, right?
5 years.
Nice. Okay, so you were basically graduated 4 years, right? Now post-grad, right. 1 year in the workforce. So what have been some learnings?
People are amazing. The people at IMG Academy, it's an amazing thing, IMG Academy. It's complicated. It's hard. We have 1,100 staff just on the campus.
Oh, wow.
Just on the campus, we have 1,100 staff for 1,600 boarding school student athletes. And it is obviously a boarding school. It's a global destination. We have some of the largest youth sports tournaments and events. We have a hotel, we have a golf course, and the delivery model, the educational delivery model is just really intense. And that makes it interesting, hard, complicated. And it's a lot of fun because at the center of it are these families and these student athletes that are looking to have a great experience. So that's one. Two is I found that what we know at IMG Academy is that sports creates a platform for education. And we think the greatest holistic education on earth. That's not a choice between academics and athletics. The whole world likes to separate these things. In fact, they call sports extracurricular, which that's a foreign idea to any staff, student, or family at IMG Academy. Of course, they're one and the same. Education is academics and sports together. And so we worked really hard, especially on the brand and the outside perception. We're really well known for the 12 national championships we've won in the last 5 years, which is incredible. But the truth is that baseball team that has won 3 national championships in the last 5 years, there are 13 baseball teams. 13. And the reason is because IMG Academy is not only about the most elite athletes, It's about families of student athletes that want to be the best they can be at all different levels. And most importantly, these families see sports as bringing a life education and life skills, as well as a college pathway that academics on its own just cannot achieve. And so we've really, really worked hard to ensure that the product stands up to that reality and also start to change the understanding and perception of the brand and who we are in talking about ourselves as a education business or sports education business. Usually I just like to scratch out the sports qualifier because any family of IMG Academy doesn't see it that way. They see it as education. So we've been really trying to bring that to the world, this intentional development of life skills. We teach resilience the way most schools teach algebra.
I love
With
that.
intentional seated curriculum, and then you go out on the field. It's like chemistry. You learn about it, and then you go to the lab. Turns out the lab happens every day, and it's out there on the field. You know, how are you going to do with overcoming failure? How are you going to do with handling pressure? How are you going to do with communication with your teammates? Every practice and every game is a rep. It's a lab. It's an opportunity. But when you compare that, when you combine that with real curriculum from PhDs who are not also the math teacher, they're child psychologists, sports nutritionists, what you get is magical education. And so that's one of the other big learnings here in the early days is that it's not sports or academics. This is great education, and really proud of it. And the team here is passionate about it. Everybody here, the 1,100 staff, are just passionate about improving the lives of these student athletes, not just their ability on the court or on the field.
Wow, magical education. I love that. I want you to walk us through the journey of a student that wants to be a part of this amazing community, and their family, right? Walk us through when they learn about IMG and that process of application, and then what happens when they get on board, and then I know it's a lot, but talk us through the whole pathway as to when they're there and then they graduate.
It depends on the product we're talking about, right? So the great thing about IMG Academy is anybody right now could go on and be a part of IMG Academy Essentials. And there are thousands of pieces of content all around mentor performance, leadership, communication, brand building, financial literacy, all the things that athletes are looking at that aren't your typical, like how to kick a soccer ball or hit a golf ball, tend to not be delivered particularly well in the local sports environment. And that's a great place for anybody to start with our brand. Or if you're thinking about college recruiting, we have the largest college recruiting marketplace in the world, or on the education side, you'd say college matriculation. And it's just very different than traditional academic pathways where you're a family and you submit your transcript and your essays and your test scores, and then you wait to hear back and they say accept or deny. That is matriculation in the USA these days. College recruiting is different. And it's fun and it's nice because it's actually a matchmaking process. Coaches are trying to build teams and student athletes are trying to find the right fit. And it turns out the technology is really good at making that better. So we have a platform with over 200,000 student athletes and 70,000 college coaches doing exactly that. And that's easy. You can, if you're a family that is interested in that, it's right there. You could just go online and do it. The path to boarding school tends to be a variety of different ways. Over half of the student athletes that end up in boarding school actually come here and start in our summer camps product, as you might imagine. It's a very unique thing we're doing. While there's some people in the world, hoping to do something like IMG Academy someday, we always say one of one. It's a very unique experience. And so it tends to be that families that are really seriously thinking about boarding school will start by sending their student athletes to a camp for a week or two. We do it all year round, certainly a lot in the summer. And then you certainly have, anybody can go on right now, imgacademy.com, if you want to go onto the website, and it's very, clearly laid out depending on the sport. And if you're really interested and really serious about sports, you don't have to be, a future Hall of Famer, although we have those too. I always tell people, you just have to be really serious about it. 4 hours of sports and 4 hours of school every day and practice and travel is a lot. It's a lot. And you either want that and you love that or you don't. And so families, I always say that it really has to be the parents have to support it, but it has to really come from the kids, the student athletes themselves, because they're the ones that are going to live that really good, but also quite intense educational experience.
So when you say K-12, is it really K-12? K-12 students?
I
Or
say
the four?
I say K-12 because broadly, when we talk industry, you're either higher education or
Yeah,
K-12
yeah.
education. Our digital products go much younger, and campers will go down to 8, 9, 10 years old. So maybe it's second or third grade through 12th.
Hmm.
The boarding school itself is middle school and high school.
Okay, gotcha. So I understand that you work with a lot of different people, obviously, and you know what's happening in higher ed where the enrollment declines and all that good stuff. So if you kind of talk about, I think you're working on some ideas of how to help college universities with the enrollment decline. That'd be awesome. We can talk about that. If you're afraid of success, go ahead and tune out because this segment is not for you. Every year, higher ed talks about change, but Insights EDU 2026, that's not another conference. It's the catalyst. It's where fresh data drops, revealing real insights on how modern learners are thinking, searching, and deciding right now. And here's a spoiler for higher ed leaders. Most institutions aren't keeping up. 3 days on the beach, February 17th to the 19th, 2026, in Fort Lauderdale. Over 65 powerhouse speakers, 40 sessions, zero fluff. We're talking unfiltered strategy, AI integrations, and forward thinking built for the leaders who want to disrupt before they're disrupted. So here's the question. Are you ready to lead transformation or be overtaken by it? Reserve your spot now at insightsedu.com. Early bird pricing ends December 15th. Support the EdUp experience for just $5.99 a month and lock in that rate for life. You'll get ad-free early access to episodes. But hurry, price goes up after December 31st, 2025. Visit edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com and click support the show.
Sports. There's the answer.
How?
It's hiding in plain sight. I would say that a lot of really smart, especially D3, D2, NAIA, there's lots of college sports that aren't the ones playing big time, FBS football on Saturdays. There's a universe that thinks about that as college sports, but the truth is where the masses are, where enrollment is in all of these other sports, all of these great student athletes. And I like to remind people, if they don't know, people don't, in higher education, for whatever reason, don't look down at the youth sports market maybe as much. And so part of our job is to just remind people what's there. And this is all we talk to all day long. We have 300,000 families that are customers of ours. Every single one of them is thinking about college sports as their college opportunities. So we have a pretty good pulse on what these families want. And first of all, it turns out that there's a lot of them. So if you're a university president, or athletic director, I guess the thing I would encourage people to, I think people know it, but maybe don't remember it, is that 60% of every high school student is playing sports. So no matter how you cut it, if you think about the students that are matriculating into your university, over half of them will have been playing sports in high school. And it is very likely that most of them had many more diversity as well as intensity of sports experiences than what these universities are currently offering. And so when it comes to speaking to the largest affinity group, like musicians, think about it, the other things people might be doing. Sports is by far the largest affinity group coming in to these universities. And so I think there's a lot of tactics around how to acknowledge that and bring student athletes to be excited about your sports programs and facilities. The thing we really encourage universities to take a look at, encourage Congress to take a look at, and others in this moment of change in college sports, is that we should be trying to set up a system that adds more student athletes as opposed to just protect from losing student athletes in college. And it should seem pretty self-evident when there's 8 million high school student athletes. So think about that as demand for college sports opportunities. And the NCAA right now, the system allows for 500,000 roster spots. That's what's just called a supply and demand imbalance, right? So this is not rocket science here. That's what, this is not rocket science. And so we know, we've surveyed our athletes, we know because of where we're at, there are so many families that want more opportunities to play serious sports in college. And for most of them, the current setup around recreational and club sports, not all, but I'd say most, don't sort of fit that build. So right now, the college system is either you're an NCAA athlete as defined, or you're a recreational athlete. And we think there's an opportunity to, whether there's a change in rules or not through Congress or the NCAA, schools, enterprising schools that have already built lots of facilities or have lots of facilities and spent lots of donor and taxpayer money. It turns out that one field can hold a lot more than one team. And so we call it Varsity-Lite is the model. But think about for D1 schools, we're already seeing it go check out what High Point and Liberty have done. If college presidents or universities want examples of what's happened here, pulled all of their club sports into the sport instead of recreational over here and NCAA over here. They've created basically a system of like majors and minors. If you think about baseball, AAA, AA, single A, those AAA teams are recruited student athletes that are being recruited in to play at that university. And even though currently the NCAA rules don't allow their Division I teams to have a Division III program, what these smart universities are doing is saying, we'll recruit, in this case, that level of athlete. This will be their path into the university. Most of these athletes, some of them could be on scholarship. Most of them are willing to pay to be there. And they're able to add these roster spots in really affordable ways that drive, tuition-driven enrollment. So it's a win-win. There's students there, they're filling spots, they're treating it seriously with real coaching and resourcing. And those student athletes are, I'd say, whatever the university discount rate is, they're at or better than that when they're coming into sports. To the extent that there's additional overhead in these sports programs beyond the scholarships, different universities are looking at it in different ways. Some of them are charging a fee. Not saying that's the right thing or the wrong thing, but universities charge fees for international travel. They charge it for band. Families are paying it for sororities and fraternities. Yeah. And they certainly were paying sports fees in high school. So some universities are just saying that if that's what we need to do to afford it, that's an path. Liberty University, interestingly, is having the student athletes, this next level Varsity-Lite set of student athletes, they're working the games for the varsity teams, concessions and cleanup and all the other things. And instead of having to have a cost center around these things, it's the student athletes that are, helping basically earn their way into, an affordable, serious Varsity-Lite sports experience. So there's not one right answer or wrong answer, but there's a clear answer, which is every sport should have more than one team. And it shouldn't prevent schools just because of the history of the NCAA of one sport, one team. There are certainly really creative and entrepreneurial ways the universities are already executing where you can recruit really great student athletes into your school to play serious sports, and you can do it in a profitable way. It's right there.
I love that. So people listen, you might want to go back and listen to the last few minutes and just listen to that again. The High Point, shout out to them. The president was on the podcast, so they're always doing innovative work. So I appreciate that. You mentioned the survey. Any other learnings from that survey? I feel like you just gave a little bit of that. Can you talk a little bit more about that survey?
We did a quick survey because we know the market. We also wanted to say it's not our opinion. We'll just ask families. So it was a survey of 1,000 to 2,000 families who are all thinking about playing sports in college, not just the boarding school students, a whole wide array of people. And the upshots were, one of the things we wanted to make sure the world understood was that notwithstanding that 99% of the conversation in college sports right now is about money and name, image, likeness, and revenue sharing and all of this, collectives, that is not reflective of what parents of student athletes actually care about. High school student athletes actually care about. So what parents of student athletes care about, what the survey said, was that 95% of parents care about, first and foremost, sports as education, and second, pathways to university. In fact, only 5% of families that were surveyed put money in sports in college as on their top list of considerations for the reason why they were interested in college sports. And so that's not to say it's not important getting the money issues right. It is important. And that is the catalyst for much of the change in college sports. But we just can't lose sight of the fact that the majority of parents look at sports as education and unique fit and opportunities for the kids to succeed in college. And we cannot be fooled by the headlines that suggest that these student athletes and their families are only in it for the money. It's just wrong, and it's actually dangerous from my perspective. So that was one. And then two, we asked the families, we said, look, one of the unfortunate things of college sports right now, especially with this new transfer portal dynamic, not to get too far into this, is that when you look at it from a high school student athlete lens, instead of students being able to go to their top choice university, what's often happening is because there's so many transfer portal students, is that these coaches who on one hand don't like the transfer portal, if you ask most of them, on the other hand, use it. Right. And it's sort of like, it's there, so we have to use it. It's not good or bad. It's just the truth. And so what ends up happening is that a lot of the roster spots are filled by existing college student athletes, which creates a whole challenge for the matriculation of student athletes. And so what we wanted to know was, and so you see this like forced situation where families of high school student athletes are intentionally making choices to go to their first college with the understanding that they then might transfer to their ideal college. That is not how this was meant to be. I can promise you that is not what the families of student athletes in high school want. At the same time, there is a dynamic where there needs to be some ability for students to transfer. So somebody's got to figure it out. The reality of it, the upshot is, we said, hey, if there was a second team, Varsity-Lite, maybe not even playing for NCAA championships, but you got to access some of the facilities, you got real coaching, you were recruited in, so the pathway to college was the same kind of fit and matchmaking. Would you rather play at the second team of one of your top choice universities for fit, or would you rather go to a top team in a lower fit setup? And it was like overwhelming. The family said, we'd rather play on a second team, a JV team or Varsity-Lite, you can call it whatever you want, at a top fit university than to make this other choice that we're sort of being forced to have to make, now. And so I just think the survey spoke loudly and clearly. And the other thing it said, for university presidents and CFOs out there was that the majority of families are not interested in college sports only through the lens of getting a scholarship or financial aid. They're interested irrespective. And I'm not advocating for people to give less scholarships. I think more is great, right? But I think it's just important that people understand that of those 8 million high school student athletes, of the ones that are thinking about college, the majority of them are really just trying to get the right fit. They want to continue this sports education experience in college, and they're prepared to be great tuition, paying families. So yeah, that's what the survey said.
That survey says. I love it. Let's go to NIL, because I can't let you go without talking about NIL. So I'm a college president, director of athletics at a university. What am I missing about NIL that maybe you're hearing on your level with all your experience, connections, and families? What do I need to know about NIL that I might be missing?
Well, there's the One World, which is about 50 or 60 schools, which are Power 4 conferences where this is a real meaningful conversation. And then there's sort of almost everybody else, 3,000.
Exactly.
Right. So, I mean, for so many, for the majority of presidents out there, this is not it shouldn't be a meaningful anything. That's the truth. The other thing that I think university presidents should know is just, please don't get caught up in the headlines here of, yes, there is money in college sports. Yes, in some cases, there are 7-figure deals for the 0.01% of student athletes out there. But, for the families we talk to in youth sports and what they're thinking about going into college, I can promise you there are far, far, far more families that are concerned about social media and the challenges it's creating for their student athletes than there are the other side of that, which is student athletes and families trying to figure out how to leverage social media to create NIL deals, right? And so I wouldn't assume, like some of the media and big headlines, that everyone's lost their way and college sports is now professionalized. I think that for 1 or 2% of the college student athletes, which really means 1 or 2 sports in about 50 to 100 schools, that is definitely more true. And in that instance, surround them with resources and education. Make sure that they're ready for that moment. And then let's make sure, as universities and NCAA and Congress are now, there has to be obviously some changes to the rules to accommodate that. So let's just get it right. At the same time, we cannot let changes related to the 1 or 2% just assume that it applies to the other 98, 99%. This is very different. the rest of those student athletes, those programs, those sports, I think are incredible, for these universities, including enrollment. Or sports is clearly profitable. Don't get caught in the headlines of sports loses money. If they do, they don't have to. And if they did, then D3 and D2 programs wouldn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Why would they exist? They don't have big media money or big sponsorship. So lots and lots of universities out there. And if you're a D1 president, that somebody has convinced you that Olympic sports or girls sports are unprofitable or lose money, I would just say, look at D3 and D2. It is not true. It doesn't have to be the case. But you have to look at the core of what it is to be a university, which is to enroll families and student athletes. And certainly, if you've already got all these fields and you're thinking about adding sports, which is great, the easier thing to do, which we know from IMG and let's just look at U Sports, is to add a second or a third team in a sport that already exists than it is to build new buildings or new facilities and hire new staff to create a whole new sport from scratch. And I think that is the big gap between the way sports is being delivered in college right now and what I would say let's call it the free market of youth sports has already figured out, which is that whether it's from facilities or coaching or anything in between, that you should always have, if you've got the top team, you need as many teams as you can at different ability levels down the line. And college sports just hasn't quite caught up to that idea yet. But I think there's a lot of potential there, especially for universities who are looking for differentiated enrollment strategies along the way.
I love it, Brent. Wise words, sir. Wise words. So I got two more questions for you. What's the future of IMG? You talked about it a little bit more earlier, but I want to know, what is the future of IMG Academy? What do you got in the works? Tell us some secrets. What's going on?
I talked about it earlier. It's not a secret. This boarding school is going to be the best it can be. We'll keep adding sports and we're going to keep improving our product and we're going to keep putting our families and our customers and our student athletes first. And at the same time, we are going to make our brand and our intellectual property more available to more families all around the world. And we'll do that through digital products. And I mentioned earlier, we'll do that through what I call hybrid, products. We'll go out to universities, we'll go out to K-12, schools, but all of it is coming from a place of sports as education, sports life skills. And we think that is hopefully the future of sports and academics coming together in this country. And I hope more people are saying, wait, of course, sports is education. And all we're really trying to do is remind, I think, folks that you can teach all those great skills that every parent knows you're getting out of sports, the leadership, the communication, the resilience, that it can be taught, and of course, the environment of sports. Sign your kids up. Let them succeed, let them fail, let them struggle, let them overcome. I mean, it happens at every practice, and you can intentionally teach that, and how great would it be if we start graduating from high school and college more student athletes to take that into the world? I think that would be great. So that's what I'd like to see.
Nice. That's the IMG. Okay. Now, last question. What do you see as the future of sports education in general? What do you think is going to happen?
Well, I'll maybe take that from the college sports lens.
Great.
I think that what will happen is that there will be a solution, we could say solution for the few, which are really about football, to some extent basketball, and in major programs. I think that it is likely that in some shape or fashion, whether it's the SCORE Act or some other act of Congress, I think that there's too much uncertainty in that market right now. And in that uncertainty, there's a bit of paralysis that's going on across the board. And so I think that will get resolved over the next few years. There will be plenty of people that aren't happy. It won't be a perfect solution, but it will create more stability and clarity. And I think that's required for college sports to move on. What I would like to see as we're thinking about the solutions for the new money realities for the few is like there's a really simple opportunity to go from having 500,000 college roster spots, which is what the NCAA has now, to 1 million. And the really simple answer is that we have to find a way for universities to be able to administer more than one team in any given sport. Like the simplicity on the far side of complexity in all of this is, if you care about utilizing your physical assets effectively, your coaching assets, if you care about sports as an enrollment strategy, culture carrier, and a whole bunch of other things, if you care about Title IX and women's sports and the opportunity to grow sports, we have to find a way for more of the 8 million that are playing in high school to get real opportunities in college. And the way to do it that's affordable for universities is to allow universities to have more than one team in any given sport, or for enterprising entrepreneurial presidents out there, which is what High Point and Liberty are. They're not waiting for some act of Congress. They've said, well, actually, here's a model to do it. So I'm not going to go through it all right here. I've written about it a little bit. People can do their own homework. You could maybe follow up on it. But there's there's great models out there that any university can act on right now that it accomplishes the same goal, which is multiple teams in any given sport.
You know, and one thing we haven't even talked about is AI, which I love because especially now with AI, I feel like sports is needed more than ever. We need people to interact with each other in real life. And what a better way, not only to play sports, to watch sports, right? I mean, come on.
Preaching to the choir. So think about it. I always say you can't play soccer. You can't play any of these sports on your phone. And families, parents, and actually when you ask kids are craving these in-person experiences as a part of their education. And you could go look at the research from World Economic Forum and at lots of industry leaders that are interviewing hiring managers out there saying what skills are the skills of the future. Almost counterintuitively, some people think it's technology skills, which there is, of course, plenty of that. But it's actually, as AI is coming, what you're seeing is that 3 out of the top 5 skills for 2030 are resilience, self-motivation, and teamwork communication. Because I think it turns out as the machine's going to have more of the answers, it's actually these human skills that are going to matter more. So yeah, I definitely think as we think about the future of education, it needs to be about physical experiences that you can't get on your screen or on your phone, because more and more of seated classroom education can be delivered really well in that mechanic. And you need to develop skills that employers want, which I think line really well up with sports. And so if you're an educational institution, higher ed, whose job is to prepare those students for the job market, I think that sports is a great way to do that. So let's have more of it.
All right, here. I'm a college president. I'm listening to this. I love Brent. How do I get in contact with Brent? Where do I need to go?
Yeah, well, without giving my email address out, I would say you can go. First of all, there's a lot of resources. We did a whole resource page with a partner. I wrote a white paper on this. You certainly can follow my LinkedIn, but on imgacademy.com, I think we have a -- add more athletes. There's a lot of resources there, and certainly beyond that, people that want to get in touch with me personally find ways to do it. And on this topic, especially around college sports and ways to try to help universities with this new model, I've got a lot of time and energy for it. I'm very passionate about it.
Yeah, I totally get that. I appreciate that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there he is. He's your guest today. He is Brent Richard, and he's the CEO of IMG Academy. Thank you so much for your time today.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, you've just EdUp. Done. Block out your calendar, bring your team, and lock in your spot, because Insights EDU early bird pricing ends December 15th. We'll see you in Fort Lauderdale, February 17th to the 19th, 2026. For 3 days that will disrupt what you think you know about marketing and enrollment for today's modern learner. The EdUp experience has delivered over 1,000 episodes with higher ed leaders from around the world. Now you can support the show for just $5.99 a month and lock in that rate for life when you join before December 31st, 2025. You'll enjoy ad-free early access to episodes. Go to edupexperience.com. That's EDUP experience.com. Click support the show and secure your lifetime rate today.